Before this evening's group meditation, let's explore meditation and the Force. You know, every lazy ass, such as myself, has gotten comfortable in bed, and then realized the remote was 2 meters away, and then when they were sure no one was looking, has tried to use the Force. Come on, you know you've done it. So I'm not going to lie to you and say that you and I can perform the telekinesis that we see in all the great Star Wars movies, but we can use the Force as a metaphor of the flow state. I love how in the galaxy that Lucas built, the Sith are a wonderful cautionary tale of Yang. If you read the Tao Te Ching over and over and over again, you can read the whole thing cover to cover every week. And as the weeks turn into years, you'll begin to notice patterns in Lao Tzu's Magus Opus. You'll notice that every time the author mentions both Yang and Yin, he always sternly admonishes the reader to avoid Yang and to consistently choose Yin within the context of philosophical Yang and Yin. So the philosophical Yang individual is rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, competitive, cryptic, and cruel. When we watched, who can forget, when the first time we watched Revenge of the Sith, when we saw the handsome and debonair Chancellor of the Republic transform into prune-faced McGillicuddy. That is a delightful example of the Sith, the all too common Sith consequence of the corruption of the flesh. And that's really explored in the novels and the comic books and the video games. What the primary difference is that the Sith try to use the Force as a tool to fulfill their agenda. I don't know about you, but way back in the 80s, I was taught that the key to personal power, success, and happiness was manipulating everything to my will, my circumstances, my body, the people in my life, even the mechanisms of my own mind. A good old Tony Robbins called that getting leverage on oneself. And the Sith are an excellent cautionary example of why that's a very bad idea. But I would say that the opposite of Darth Sidious was Qui-Gon Jinn, my favorite Jedi of the prequel era, and or at least the prequel trilogy. And although there are plenty of Jedi like Qui-Gon Jinn in books and comics that I'm just not an expert on. But Qui-Gon Jinn is a delightful example of someone who wanted to know the will of the Force and to flow with the Force, that he might become an instrument of the Force. And so you can see, to put it more bluntly, the Sith sees the Force as a tool, whereas a good Jedi, a Jedi in the ilk of Qui-Gon Jinn, sees himself as a tool of the Force. The Sith, consider a little boy marching across a stream, disrupting as much of the ecosystem of that stream as possible. That's a Sith. As opposed to a Jedi trying to harmonize with the flow and momentum and well-being of the stream. That is what we mean by going with the flow. Now, we don't want to do it in a pseudo-intellectual way where we squander our lives forever second guessing ourselves and our circumstance and our body and our relationships and our own mind. Here is an annoying rule of thumb. The moment you ask, am I in the zone? You're not. So here's the irony. If you don't give a shit about the zone, you're probably not in the zone. If you're hyper fixated on whether you're in the zone, you're not in the zone. But when you are centered, when you are, and right now I'm going to, before I go into too much detail, I'm going to skip that detail and go straight to the means of tuning into the zone and making a habit of it, mastering it to the point that tuning into the zone and flowing with the zone is something we do spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. And that is accomplished through a healthy and sustainable meditation practice. And I recommend starting out about 5 minutes, practicing for about 5 minutes, about every 12 hours. That's a good place to start. If you want to increase that by 5 minutes a session every week, that's great. By the end of 4 months, you could find yourself having grown comfortable with 60 minutes of meditation every 12 hours, which would just make you a powerhouse. But let's get down to brass tacks, and then I'll tie it up in a nice red bow. So what is the key to mindfulness? And if you've been attending my live streams, you could probably recite this in your sleep. Mindfulness is not active concentration, but it is simply being perceptive and allowing our perception to be vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. Fortunately, every time we inhale, we automatically access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to do just that, allowing us to notice all manner of things, allowing us to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, allowing us to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, making us completely vulnerable to whatever we notice, whether that which we notice is external, internal, physical, mental, pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. Now, a very intuitive question would be, what do we do with all that stuff? How do we keep from getting completely overwhelmed by it? Simple. The answer is we meditate upon it. But how do we do that? Well, since meditation is similar to mindfulness, but it's opposite. So meditation is also related to the breath, but this time to the exhalation. For every time we exhale, we access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to cause us to both physically relax as well as mentally release. In fact, we could say that mental release serves the carrier wave of physical relaxation. Now, this might seem like an overwhelming bunch of information. This might seem like I'm asking you to walk a tightrope across 2 skyscrapers. Fortunately, I am not. You see, every time we inhale, we automatically perceive. Therefore, every time we inhale, it's completely apropos to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Similarly, every time we exhale, we are already wired, thanks to our autonomic nervous system, to physically relax and mentally release. Therefore, it's perfectly appropriate during each exhalation to silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. Now, the more we do this, doing this, like we said, about every 12 hours, starting off about 5 minutes per session the first week, perhaps 10 minutes per session the second week, perhaps 15 minutes per session the third week, so forth and so on. By the completion of your 12th week, you could be very comfortable with 60-minute sessions because you progressed gradually. Your body has had a chance to acclimate. Your schedule has had a chance to acclimate. Your roommate or your partner or your pets or your children have had a chance to see that this new thing in your life isn't making you a weirdo. It's making you more loving and more patient and more peaceful and more grounded and more resourceful. It's helping you to intuitively go with the flow, to find the middle ground between scatteredness and contrivance. A middle ground we could describe as not scattered spontaneity, but centered spontaneity that creates an effortless probability that our choices and our utterances and our deeds would effortlessly go with the flow. I look forward to meditating with you in about a minute and a half. But first, this is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. If you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa on Ajahn Claus under the guidance of Luke Skywalker, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news. If at any point during this evening's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. If you're watching on a laptop or a desktop, that chat window could be on the right-hand side of the screen. If you're watching on your smartphone, it could be down below. Nothing like hot water. When water's not too hot or not too cold, it actually tastes sweet, which is wild. Oopsie. Please join me that together as a team, we might chant from the Saturday evening selection or excerpt from Gaurab Dorje's The Vast Expanse of Vajrasattva. Together. The energetic radiance of consciousness dwells in all and is a way for all. This is egalitarian. If any teacher says Dzogchen is for special people who've jumped through the hoops for multiple decades, thank them for their time and get out of there, because that person doesn't understand that the author of the first text on Dzogchen was all about egalitarianism. Let's continue. For those lost in ignorance, confused by obscurations, it is like a medicine in search of a doctor to prescribe what is needed. When we are confused, our intuitive approach to meditation is going to be bass backwards. Let's continue. From within the field of our understanding, bliss arises, revealing the ordinary world as pristinely pure. So we all want bliss. We are wired to want bliss. That's how our dopamine reward system works. As inferred by previous chapters, we don't need visualizations. We don't need to work with our subtle energy. Whenever we simply go with the flow of noticing in harmony with our inhalation and relaxing in harmony with our exhalation, we will experience physical bliss. In addition to feeling physical bliss, this momentum of noticing and relaxing in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation is going to take our experience of the ordinary world and make it feel pristinely pure. Now, that doesn't mean that water's no longer going to be wet and fire's no longer going to be hot. It doesn't mean that trolls aren't going to be trolls, and it doesn't mean that they're going to stop being cruel. It doesn't mean they're going to stop perceiving cruelty. It doesn't mean we're going to stop having a visceral reaction to cruelty or to exploitation or to genocide. What it means is we're going to get really good at making peace with the unacceptable. Any fool can be peaceful when everything is hunky-dory. That's called living in a gilded cage. But can we step out of that gilded cage into an ugly world of cruelty and injustice and maintain both peace and empathy simultaneously? That is the gift of Dzogchen. Let's continue. When lights from all directions come together in one's heart, one realizes omnipresent divinity above, below, and in all directions. What does that mean? This is a metaphor for breathing. Now, we don't breathe with our belly, we don't breathe with our nose, we breathe with our lungs. That's what they evolved to do. That is where we have alveoli. If we were insects, we'd be able to breathe through tiny cracks in our carapace. But we are not insects, we are humanoids, and as such, we breathe through our lungs, which are located, on either side of our heart within our rib cage. So when we breathe from our heart, noticing as we breathe in, relaxing as we breathe out, that a metaphor for that is lights from all directions coming together in one's heart. One realizes omnipresent divinity above, below, and in all directions. So above, below, in all directions is known as the 10 directions. That's the nadir, the zenith, the nadir, the 4 cardinal points, and the intermediate directions. But that's beside the point. When we say omnipresent divinity, that is another metaphor. It's a metaphor that comes to us from the Mahayoga tradition, that itself is based upon the idea of bringing the 2 truths of Nagarjuna into the path of the 4 bases of mindfulness. The 4 bases of mindfulness are the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. And so bringing those 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of the 2 truths would be like this. Our circumstances are seen, yet void. Our bodies are felt, yet void. Our relationships to others or with others are resounding, yet void. Our mind that perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines is lucid, yet void. Or in other words, we perceive vividly, dualistically, we release viscerally, non-dualistically, effortlessly and automatically by going with the flow of inhalations observation and exhalations relaxation. Together. From the colors of the rainbow, the primordial families and their qualities all manifest. So what does that mean? Simply this. Whatever hate we experience as we breathe in, once we relax into our exhalation, or as we relax into our exhalation, transforms into the mirror-like wisdom of the Vajra family. So these 5 families are just a way of organizing the 5 wisdoms and the 5 poisons. It's an old Mahayana practice, and it's written in your notes, but allow me to elaborate. Although we might notice craving as we breathe in, as we relax into our exhalation, that craving could be experienced as the discerning wisdom of the lotus family. That which we experience as confusion as we breathe in could be experienced as the wisdom of the basic space of phenomena of the Buddha family as we relax into our exhalation. That which we experience as jealousy or competitiveness as we breathe in could be experienced as the all-accomplishing wisdom of the action family or the karma family as we relax into our exhalation. That which we experience as pride or clinging as we breathe in could be experienced as the equalizing wisdom of the jewel or Ratna family as we relax into our exhalation. So we're not doing anything different. We're using the universal tool, which is observantly breathing in, observant inhalation, and relaxing exhalation. And so we see the one antidote applied to a multiplicity of issues. Let's continue with our chanting. Compounded moving parts in the uncompounded unmoving base, along with the deities of the 5 elements that animate creation. So, way back in the early days of the Iron Age, we're in the digital age, the Silicon Age. Back in the early days of the Iron Age, they didn't have the elaborate periodic table of elements that we have now. Or at least we didn't have that understanding of the table of elements. And so in many circles, I just thought of 4 elements or 5 elements, which was a nifty, handy-dandy starting place. And so the idea is the same thing. The inhalation's experience of the water element could transform into the exhalation's experience of Akshobhya's empowerment. The inhalation's experience of the fire element could be transformed into the exhalation's experience of the Amitabha empowerment or energy or momentum or strength. The inhalation experience of spaciousness, roominess, could be experienced or could be transformed into the exhalation's experience of the empowerment of Vairocana or Vairocana, depending upon how you like pronouncing it. Our wind element or energy element that we could experience with as we breathe in could be that exact same phenomena. It could automatically be experienced as the empowerment of Amagosiddhi as we exhale. And finally, that which we experience as the earth element as we breathe in could be experienced as the empowerment of Ratnasambhava as we exhale and relax. It's the same mechanism. Observing as we inhale, relaxing as we exhale. It's the simple yoga. It's the simple practice. And what's being illustrated in these 2 pages is that it's kind of like the loom that we saw, spoiler alert, in season 2 of Loki. If you're nerdy like me, or geeky like me, they had a temporal loom where timelines fed into one end and then were harmonized and fed out the other end. We could think of the practice of Dzogchen in the same way, where perceptions are fed in to our body-mind through inhalation. They are processed through the act of relaxing into our exhalation. So one practice, infinite applications. Together. Notions like past, present, and future cannot comprehend the nature of the unborn unceasing. So, we typically think of impermanence as being a primary teaching of the wisdom of letting go. At least that's how the Buddha expressed it, or is alleged to have expressed it in the Anapanasati Sutta. But we have the idea of the unborn, and the unborn only makes sense figuratively. So, whatever we perceive as we breathe in, when we relax into our exhalation, that exact same thing could now feel as non-graspable as if it had never been born, or as if it had never been assembled. And the unceasing thing goes that it is always like that. In our ever-changing universe, the 2 constants are that we can notice as we breathe in, we can relax and release as we breathe out. That is always the case. Together. In truth, nothing arises, nothing ceases. The wisdom of Source unifies all and dispels any such notions. We can get lost in the Rubik's Cubes of pseudo-intellectual machinations. Whatever arises, whenever, although we might perceive something arising as we breathe in, as we relax into our exhalation, that arising could seem non-graspable. Although we might perceive cessation as we inhale, as we relax into our exhalation, that cessation could seem non-graspable. That is the wisdom of Source. It is a visceral wisdom, a primordial wisdom, not a wisdom of cleverness, wisdom of a visceral wisdom of automatically and effortlessly letting go. Together. Whoops, I guess that's it. I would be very clever if I highlighted this. Composed by 1, 2, 3. Let's hit a paste that. Let's go back over here. Oh, look at that. I already took care of that. Hot diggity dog. Okay. Well, that was fun. Saturday night classes are always my favorite because that's just such a fun thing for me to share with you. I hope you enjoyed it. We turn, as I tap button 9, we turn our attention to our primary practice text. Both this, the sadhana, and that which we just played with, the shastra, are available for free download on my website using the links in the description area below the video. And oh yeah, by the way, everything I do is free. There's no hidden memberships, there's no hidden fees, no secret handshakes. Everything is free. Together as a team, let us chant the concise versions of bodhicitta and refuge that we might exercise the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm. Together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. And so now we've already explained meditation in the lesson, so we're just going to jump into it. Like a child doing a cannonball in their grandparents' swimming pool. So sit impeccably, have fun, and when you have a question about Buddhist meditation, philosophy, or application, type that question in great detail in the chat window, or in the chat window. Quick reminder, I check for questions approximately once every 7 to 9 minutes. Welcome to this evening's live stream. When you have specific questions about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. For now, suffice it to say that the key to mindfulness is not an act of concentration, but in merely perceiving, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, in harmony with each inhalation, as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun, this. And the key to meditation is to physically relax and mentally release, in harmony with each exhalation, while silently and mentally we recite, relaxing. Now, the great irony is that we don't have to force perception. It's already, it's taken care of by the sympathetic nervous system, which we access during each inhalation. And we don't have to force ourselves to relax or release because that's taken care of by our parasympathetic nervous system, which we effortlessly and automatically access during each exhalation. Let us seal this evening's meditation with 2 brief chants, beginning with kind ethics. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness, flow spontaneous and uncontrived. Let's conclude with the 4 immeasurables. May everyone be free from misery. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 10 1/3 hours, I look forward to returning to lead tomorrow's early morning lesson and meditation practice. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.